Have you ever met an older person who did not seem bitter or afraid, but calm and quietly strong? And you wondered how they became that way? Have you ever asked yourself what kind of person you want to become when time has taken away the things you once used to prove your worth? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about something that feels encouraging without being fake. The idea that in old age, certain qualities become so uncommon that if you carry them, you are genuinely rare. Not rare because you look young. Not rare because you achieved something flashy. Rare because your mind is steady, your heart is kind, and your life feels clean. Buddhist wisdom has always cared more about the direction of the heart than the decoration of the surface. And as the years pass, the surface changes for everyone. What remains is the mind you trained in, the karma you cultivated. When people hear the phrase rare gem, they sometimes imagine praise or ego. But in Buddhism, the highest value is not status. The highest value is liberation from unnecessary suffering and the capacity to bring peace into a world that often forgets how. In old age, you see clearly how many people are still trapped. Trapped in resentment, trapped in worry, trapped in comparison, trapped in craving, trapped in the need to be right, trapped in shame, trapped in the fear of being forgotten. So when you find an older person who is not trapped in those ways, it feels like meeting fresh water in a dry place. I want to begin with a simple scene that might feel familiar. An older person sits in a waiting room. Some people around them are anxious and impatient. Someone complains loudly. Someone scrolls and sighs. Someone argues with staff. The atmosphere becomes tense. Then you notice one person sitting quietly, breathing slowly, not pretending to be happy, but grounded. They look up and offer a small smile to someone who seems scared. They speak gently. They wait without drama. They are not numbing out. They are present. That presence changes the room a little. Even if no one thanks them, the room feels different because of them. That is rare. So what are these 5 things that, if you can do them in old age, make you a rare gem? We will explore them as living qualities, not as slogans. And I will tell you stories along the way. Because wisdom becomes real when it enters ordinary life. Each quality is also a form of practice. Each quality is tied to the same core Buddhist themes that quietly shape a peaceful life. Awakening, wisdom, karma, compassion, practice. Destiny is the unfolding of causes, and the courage to meet impermanence without panic. The first rare quality is this. You can accept change without turning it into bitterness. Many people think they accept change because they know it is unavoidable. But knowing and accepting are different. Accepting means your mind stops arguing with reality. It means you still feel grief, but you do not weaponize it. You still feel pain, but you do not turn it into hatred. You still face loss, but you do not use loss as proof that life is unfair and therefore love is pointless. Acceptance is not passive. It is strong. It is the strength to stop fighting what is already true so your energy can be used to live. In Buddhism, impermanence is the teacher of acceptance. Everything changes. Bodies change. Relationships change. Roles change. Money changes. Health changes. Plans change. Opinions change. The world changes. When you resist this, you suffer twice. You suffer because life changes. And you suffer because your mind insists that it should not. The rare gem is the person who feels the natural pain of change, but does not add the poison of bitterness. There was a woman named Marjorie, 79, who lost her driving ability after a health issue. For years, driving had meant freedom. It meant independence. It meant identity. When the doctor advised her to stop, she felt a wave of grief that surprised her. She cried alone in her kitchen. Then anger came. She became sharp with family. She refused help because she wanted to prove she was still in control. Her mind built a harsh story. I am becoming useless. People will treat me like a child. My life is shrinking. A friend visited and did not argue. The friend simply said, "I am sorry. This hurts." And then the friend asked, "Are you willing to let this be sad without letting it make you cruel?" That question landed gently but firmly. Marjorie realized she was turning grief into cruelty because cruelty felt like power. She began a new practice. When anger rose, she named it. When shame rose, she named it. She breathed. She allowed sadness. She stopped pretending she was fine. She asked for help without treating it as humiliation. She began planning rights. She discovered that people were not trying to control her. They were trying to care. Her life did change. But it did not have to become smaller inside. Over time, she noticed something. Without a car, she walked more. She noticed neighbors. She chatted more. She felt more connected to the street, to small details, to the pace of living. She still missed driving, but she did not become bitter. She became more awake. That is rare. The second rare quality is this. You can stop overthinking and return to the present again and again. Many minds become louder with age, not because age is the enemy, but because the mind has more room to replay. Retirement changes structure. Losses create gaps. Quiet becomes more common. And in quiet, the mind either becomes wise or becomes restless. Overthinking is often the mind trying to control uncertainty. It tries to solve the future before it arrives. It tries to rewrite the past. It tries to create safety through endless analysis. But Buddhism teaches that safety comes from training the mind, not from predicting every outcome. The rare gem is the older person who can feel fear without spiraling, who can have a thought without being dragged by it, who can notice the mind building a story and choose to return to breath, to sensation, to what is actually happening now. This does not mean the mind is silent. It means the mind is not tyrannical. I once heard an older man describe his practice in a way I will never forget. He said, "My thoughts still knock on the door. I just do not invite them in for dinner." He meant that thoughts can arise, but you do not have to feed them with attention. Buddhism calls this non-clinging. You do not cling to pleasant thoughts. You do not cling to unpleasant thoughts. You witness. You return. You practice. Imagine a man named Hassan, 73, who used to lie awake at night replaying everything. Did I save enough? Did I raise my children well? What if I get sick? What if I lose my memory? What if I become a burden? His mind was a courtroom, and he was both the defendant and the prosecutor. One day he learned a simple mindfulness practice. Not a perfect practice, just a real one. When he noticed the mind racing, he placed his hand on his chest and said softly, "Thinking is happening." Then he took one slow breath, not to force calm, just to return. The first week, it felt pointless. The mind kept racing. But something subtle began to change. He started catching the mind earlier. He noticed the exact moment a thought tried to hook him, and he began choosing not to hook back. Over months, his nights became quieter. Not always, but often enough that he trusted himself again. The fear did not disappear. It softened. And the more he practiced returning, the more he felt a quiet dignity. He was no longer bullied by his own mind. That is rare. The third rare quality is this. You can forgive and let go. Not because everything was fine, but because you value peace more than punishment. This one is deeply Buddhist. Karma is cause and effect shaped by intention. When you carry resentment for years, it shapes your mind, your body, your speech, your relationships. It is not only emotional. It becomes physical tension. It becomes bitterness in the voice. It becomes suspicion in the eyes. It becomes a hardening that makes life narrower. Many people do not realize that resentment is a form of self-harm. Not dramatic, but chronic. It keeps the nervous system in fight mode. It keeps the heart closed. It keeps you trapped in the past. The rare gem is the older person who says, "I am not going to spend my remaining days feeding old poison." They may still remember. They may still set boundaries. But they released the obsession with revenge. They released the need for the other person to finally admit everything. They released the fantasy that punishment will heal them. Buddhism teaches that clinging is suffering. Clinging to blame is still clinging. And letting go is not weakness. Letting go is freedom. There was a woman named Elena who carried anger toward her sister for 40 years. They had a conflict over family responsibilities. Words were said that could not be unsaid. Then life moved on, but the anger stayed. Elena told herself she was justified. And perhaps she was. But being justified did not bring peace. It brought insomnia. It brought a tight jaw. It brought a harsh tone even with people who did nothing wrong. The anger leaked into everything. At 70, Elena began attending a quiet meditation group. She did not think it would change anything. But in stillness, she saw her own suffering more clearly. She realized her anger was not only about her sister. It was also about her own grief, her own feeling of being unseen, her own fear of being used. She began practicing compassion, not for her sister at first, but for herself. She placed a hand on her chest and whispered, "This hurt. I wanted fairness. I wanted care. I wanted to matter." As she softened toward herself, something surprising happened. Her sister became less like a villain and more like a flawed human being shaped by her own causes and conditions. This did not erase responsibility. It simply removed the poison. Elena eventually wrote a short message. Not dramatic, not begging, just honest. "I have carried this too long. I want peace. I hope you are well." Her sister replied weeks later, also simply, "I am sorry. I did not know how to be better then." The relationship did not become perfect, but Elena felt something uncoil inside her. She slept better. She smiled more. She stopped rehearsing old battles. She had released a stone she did not need to carry into the last chapters of her life. That is rare. The fourth rare quality is this: you can care for others without losing yourself, and you can care for yourself without guilt. This is where compassion and wisdom must walk together. Many older people spent decades being the helper, the provider, the one who sacrifices. They confuse love with self-abandonment. Then, in old age, the body demands rest, but the mind still demands endless giving. This creates guilt. Guilt says, if you rest, you are selfish. If you say no, you are bad. If you prioritize your health, you are not loving. Buddhism offers a more honest compassion. Compassion means reducing suffering. If your constant giving creates resentment and exhaustion, it is not pure compassion. It is suffering disguised as virtue. The rare gem is the older person who has learned boundaries as a form of kindness. They help, but they do not overfunction. They love, but they do not control. They give, but they also receive. They do not use helping as a way to avoid their own feelings. They do not use sacrifice as a way to buy approval. They help from steadiness. Imagine an older man named William who always felt responsible for everyone. His adult children had problems, and he tried to solve them. His friends had issues, and he took them on. His partner needed support, and he gave it. But he never admitted when he was tired. He was proud of being strong. Then his health began to weaken. He felt ashamed. He kept trying to carry what he could not carry. He became irritable, then withdrawn. His love turned into bitterness. A teacher told him a simple Buddhist truth. Compassion without wisdom becomes exhaustion. Wisdom without compassion becomes cold. You need both. William began practicing wise compassion. He started asking himself, if I say yes to this, will I become resentful? If I say yes, will I have energy left for my own health? If I say yes, am I helping, or am I controlling? These questions changed his life. He began saying no in calm ways. He began offering support that was realistic. He began letting his children solve their own problems more. He stopped rescuing. At first he feared they would hate him, but instead, something healthier grew. His children became more responsible. His relationships became less transactional, and William felt lighter. He realized that focusing on himself was not abandoning others. It was preventing hidden resentment from poisoning love. That is rare. The fifth rare quality is this: you can live with meaning, even when the world gives you less applause. This one matters because society often celebrates youth and speed. As people age, the spotlight moves away. Some people respond by becoming desperate for attention. Others respond by collapsing into invisibility. Both responses are painful. Buddhism offers a third way. Meaning does not come from applause. Meaning comes from practice, integrity, generosity, and a mind that is waking up. The rare gem is the older person who no longer needs to prove they matter. They live as if their days are precious, not because others are watching, but because they are awake. In Buddhism, practice is the real wealth. You can lose money, health, status, but practice remains. The ability to return to breath, the ability to speak kindly, the ability to forgive, the ability to accept impermanence, the ability to plant good causes, karma, through intention and action. These are the treasures that do not expire. There was a retired nurse named Joanna who spent her life being needed. When she stopped working, she felt empty. She missed the urgency, the identity. She said, "I feel useless now." Her mind began to darken. She watched television for hours. She complained more. She felt like life was fading. Then she met an older neighbor who invited her to help at a small community kitchen once a week. Joanna resisted because it sounded too simple. But she went. She chopped vegetables. She served food. She listened to people. Some were lonely. Some were struggling. Some were simply grateful. Joanna realized that her old job had given her meaning through intensity. This new service gave her meaning through presence. She did not need a uniform. She did not need a title. She only needed a willing heart. She began practicing loving kindness quietly while serving. May you be safe. May you be fed. May you be at ease. Her mind softened. Her voice softened. She began sleeping better. She stopped needing external praise because her heart felt full. She was planting karma of compassion. And that compassion made her feel radiant in a way no promotion ever did. That is rare. Now I want to bring these 5 qualities together into one continuous feeling. Because a rare gem is not someone who does one thing once. A rare gem is someone who practices these qualities until they become natural. Accepting change without bitterness means you stop arguing with impermanence. Returning to the present means you stop being dragged by fear. Forgiving means you stop carrying poison. Wise compassion means you stop abandoning yourself. Meaning without applause means you stop living for approval and start living for awakening. When an older person embodies these, you can feel it. They do not need to announce it. Their presence shows it. They are softer but stronger. They are slower but clearer. They are less impressed by surface success and more devoted to inner cleanliness. They are not perfect. They are practiced. And this is where the teaching becomes hopeful for you. These qualities are not genetic. They are trainable. Karma means your repeated intentions shape your future mind. If you practice bitterness, bitterness becomes familiar. If you practice compassion, compassion becomes familiar. If you practice returning, returning becomes familiar. If you practice forgiveness, forgiveness becomes familiar. If you practice meaning, meaning becomes familiar. So, if you want to become a rare gem in old age, you do not have to wait until old age. You can start now. Not by doing everything at once, but by planting one seed. One seed might be a daily breath practice. One seed might be a boundary spoken calmly. One seed might be a forgiveness you begin quietly. One seed might be reducing what overstimulates your mind. One seed might be one act of generosity done without needing recognition. One seed might be replacing a harsh inner sentence with a kinder one. The point is not perfection. The point is direction. I want to close with a more personal tone, because many of you watching are carrying fear behind the question. You might fear that you will become bitter. You might fear that you will become lonely. You might fear that you will become dependent. You might fear that you will lose your sharpness. These fears are human. But Buddhism reminds you that while you cannot control everything, you can train the mind that meets everything. And a trained mind is the safest home you can build. So, here is a gentle question to sit with. Which of these 5 qualities feels hardest for you right now? And what is one small practice you could begin today to move in that direction? If you feel comfortable, share your experience in the comments. Share what you are learning about aging, about change, about forgiveness, about boundaries, about meaning. Your story may help someone else feel less alone. If this video brought you calm or clarity, please support the channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting. It helps more people find this quiet wisdom when they need it most. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take one slow breath right now. Feel your body supported. Let the shoulders soften. Let the jaw relax. And remember, becoming a rare gem is not about being extraordinary in the eyes of the world. It is about being awake, kind, and free in the ordinary moments where life is actually lived. Until next time, be gentle, be steady, and keep practicing the kind of wisdom that grows brighter with age.